Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are doing Banlist predictions. Well, the Duelist Cup is just around the corner, and, or I should say Stage 2 is just around the corner, where Konami figures out what the most popular decks are, what their most problematic cards are, and bans accordingly, or limits accordingly, theoretically. And that's mostly what has happened. We've had some very big ban lists around the Duelist Cup, and while we have had ban lists basically once a month, I do expect a more impressive ban list around the Duelist Cup, which is why I am doing this video. So let's quickly talk about the meta and to talk about what I expect to see. Moving over to Duelist, not Duel Links meta, MasterDuelMeta.com. This is all of the Duelist Cup Duel Level Max decks, which are more or less what you would expect to see a lot of in Stage 2. Maybe not at the very top, but more so just throughout. Now, I don't know of any particular strategies that are popping up out of nowhere and are top tier, or builds or anything like that are top tier, because most of the time players will hide that as best they can, so that they are able to get a leg up, right? So we'll see that after the Duelist Cup. But here is what we have for the Duel Level Max decks. Obviously, Sprite at the top. Runic Sprite has seen a dip. I think this is... I don't think it's due to lack of power. I think that Runic Sprite is still one of the best decks. I think Sprite has overtaken it, the more pure variant with the frogs and stuff like that. But I still think Runic Sprite is probably the second best. I think people have just switched. They're still playing Sprite, just playing the more pure variant. So there's that. And then we have Sword Soul Tenyi. This is definitely a comfort pick more so than anything. I don't think it's honestly as powerful as Sprite or anything like this. This is just people like the deck. It's very fun. It's very simple. It's very easy, which is why they're going to get to Duel Level Max with it. Branded Despia is a little bit more difficult, which is why it sees less representation, but I do think that it is overall more powerful. Flunder as well is absolutely insane because it just ignores Max C, and so a lot of people really like that, and will just play Flunder. There you go. We have the new Ishizu stuff, which is basically just an amalgamation of 60 cards that work really well together, which was entirely available and a strategy that you could have done without the Ishizu stuff. The Ishizu stuff just kind of makes it easier, I guess. And you can specifically mill your opponent out due to the Ishizu cards, with Agito and Kelbeck being able to mill 10 cards and then going into Necroface and banishing a whole bunch of cards as well, which is hilarious. Rika, ignore this one. This one is entirely on here just because people like the, it's a waifu deck. That's it. It's just a waifu deck. People really like it, and good players, really good players, are going to make this look really good. Most of the populace are going to make this look really bad. So I would not say that this deck is something to necessarily keep on your radar, other than knowing that it exists and knowing that it's going to tribute your monsters for cost. That's basically all you need to know. Other than that, you're probably not going to see it all that often. Adamancipator, on the other hand, is absolutely insane and has been for a really long time. The limitation of Block Dragon did literally nothing. The new Ishizu cards are less a boon than the new Punk stuff. Punk just does everything for every archetype right now because it gets them access to Chaos Ruler. We'll talk about him in a second, but the Punks will receive a hit, I would imagine, due to Chaos Ruler, and we'll talk about that in a second, as I said. But Adamancipator's receiving Block Dragon, or still having Block Dragon, is insane. You can play at 60 cards, you can play at 40, I've seen both, but they also now have access to a level 9 synchro that hand rips, which means now their unbreakable boards in a meta full of Dark Ruler No Mores and droplets is also just as safe, because you now also get to look at your opponent's hand due to Smoke Grenade of the Thief and rip a card out of it. Absolutely crazy. Next up, we have ourselves Spiral, Dragon Link, and any live or Sprite variant is definitely things to look out for. Exo Sister isn't as good. The Rika, Exo Sister, Labyrinth, Sky Striker decks, those are mostly there just because of people liking waifu decks. Pretty simple. Atagnister is the better Mathmech version of the deck. You play the Atagnister stuff, with the Mathematic stuff, and you're good. And then Tri-Brigade is something that is, I think, very heavily slept on. Any version of Tri-Brigade is pretty good. Pretty simple there. So yeah, let's hop into the predictions, and we'll go from there. Alright, let's just jump into the thick of it. I do expect a few cards to be banned, because they have been problematic for a while now. So, well, more specifically, they've been a problem for a while, but now they are rearing their ugly head and really showing themselves to be a nuisance due to the new Ishizu cards. And it's a lot of mill stuff and Smoke Grenade. But let's start with Fairy Tail Snow. Fairy Tail Snow is just an absolutely insane card. Right now, the biggest issue with Snow is specifically being paired with the Necroface Ishizu Mill FDK stuff. If your opponent activates Maxi, you now get to mill them out of their entire deck and prevent them from ever playing the game due to you milling your cards into the graveyard and then activating Snow to banish all of your Necrofaces in order to then trigger those Necrofaces to banish more cards to basically mill your opponent out, right? And you have a myriad of ways to do that. However, Snow has been problematic for a long time. In the TCG, it went from banned to 1, and then off of that, in the next list, it was immediately banned again because of how problematic it was. Now, the OCG still has it at 3, but I do think that due to the way that they decided to give us the Ishizu stuff first, basically before we got tier, I do think that because of the way that they've done this, Snow will be more on their radar, and they will see it as a problem and ban it. That's kind of my expectation. It does suck because it is a UR. I don't know if they'll like limit it first. But this is one of those things where it's like, this could just be on the chopping block, gone. Moving on, Block Dragon is 100% getting banned. If they don't ban this, this is absolutely insane. It's currently at 3 in the OCG, and it is a problem. Guess what? One of the, probably the second best deck right now in the OCG is Adamancipator. Crazy. Yeah, they have Block Dragon at 3. They're playing it at 3. They're playing it with Grass. And guess what? Yeah, Grass is also on this list. I do expect Grass to be hit. Maybe not banned, but I'm going to say that it is going to be banned. I think Konami is really going to be scared of the tier stuff, and they're going to see that Grass is one of the best decks right now, like having Grass, and like, you know, the Block Dragon stuff, the Ishizu stuff, the Snow stuff. They're going to be very wary of that, and they're going to hit a whole bunch of stuff in preparation for tier, and I think they're going to do more than I think that they're going to do less when it comes to this. So that's why I am putting that Grass looks greener on here. Smoke Grenade of the Thief has been on, or is currently on the TCG list because of its interaction with Infernomalite, being able to rip a card out of your hand, while also ending on more or less an unbreakable board. However, this card is still now seeing play because we got better, easier access to it. Instead of having to go specifically through Charles, now what we can do is we can go through the new generic 9 power tool to just rip a card out of our hand. It does require 2 garnets technically, but in a 60 card list, having 2 additional garnets is not that big of a deal. And then of course the king of just lucky mills, Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler is has been a really strong card for a really long time in Dragon Link specifically, because they had easy access to this and a very good game plan centered around getting Chaos Monsters into the graveyard to facilitate this guy even more efficiently. However, now he is being used in Earths to mill for Block Dragon, which is not something that they want. But on top of that, with the Punk stuff, being able to instantly go into a Chaos Ruler off of a single card, it means that you are a lot more likely to see this. And then on top of that, with the Punk stuff, you then can also go into Zombie Vampire, which then mills additional cards, which again, paired with the Ishizu stuff, will be a heavy limit, or will be problematic. I do expect this to be banned as well. Now, this is a lot of bans, but again, I do expect them to be more overcorrecting for the tier stuff before tier even arrives than they are going to be hesitant to actually hit any of this stuff. Now, other notable things that I'm not talking about is like Scythe or obviously Maxi, which everyone always talks about, or any of the other floodgates. Don't think most of them would be hit. These are the things that I think Konami will see and be like, oh no, we've messed up. Let's get rid of these cards instead of the new Ishizu stuff. Even though, well, all of these cards are problems. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. I don't have many limitations. However, I do expect maybe some tier cards to be on here. But Kelbeck and specifically Agito are the two that I would imagine go to 1. Now, notably, Agito is the Miller that is currently at 2, and both of these are Millers. That's more or less why I'm expecting them to both go to 1, right? I do expect, again, Konami fearing tier and full power Ishizu tier. They are going to limit these guys because, you know, they're a problem. They're in the degen strategy. They don't want them with tier. But alas, they gave us the Ishizu stuff before tier because they're stupid and made a terrible mistake. Anyway, yeah, that's more or less it for these. Pretty simple. Now, with the semi-limitations, I have Mudora as the only one on here because the rest of the rest of these cards are already limited. I don't expect Keldo to also be semi-limited. I think Konami probably notices that the Shufflers are less a problem and more so the Millers are the problem. And the Shufflers in particular are actually pretty good specifically against the Ishizu stuff. So they're like, or not the Ishizu, the tier stuff. So they're going to be like, well, we can leave these, right? There's another idea that I have where they actually put Mudora and Agito to 1 and they keep Kelbeck and Keldo at 2. And so it's the 2 URs at 2 still, and then the Mudora goes down to 1 instead, along with the Agito because they're SRs. That is something that is highly likely to happen as well. Figured I'd talk about it. However, this is really where I will say that I expect most of the tier stuff to actually be semi-limited. I don't expect all of it. I expect specifically Havness to be either semi-limited or limited. I expect Rhinoheart to be semi-limited, and I expect probably Kit to be limited as well. Kit Kalos to be limited as well. Those are the 3 things that I would say are most likely to happen, and maybe there is a third main deck card that gets limited as well, like the field spell or like Merly or what have you. I don't expect much more than that in terms of the tier stuff. If they already hit it that much, I still think that is, at least for them, they're going to think that it's bad for their bottom line because they're not going to be making as much money off of the new tier cards. So I would say 3 to 4 limitations, a limit, at least 1. Most of them are going to be semi-limited. So we're going to talk about them here. That's why. Moving on to the Unlimits. Now, we do have a whole bunch of things that could possibly happen. This is one where I'm not entirely sure which cards they will choose. This is more just, here are the cards that I expect could be unlimited. This is less of a prediction, more of a, they'll hit a few of these. Orphoscorpio, this one's fine. Predaplant, like the most that it was paired with Branded, and it was good. Having the third Orphoscorpio doesn't matter. I don't think so. The difference between 2 and 3 really doesn't matter. Multifaker has been fine. It's been fine. Altergeist is going to get it back eventually. It's just whether or not it's going to be now or later. Raigeki is also a card that I expect Konami will be fine with overall. This is the one I'm least likely to, or I expect the least to happen, mostly because we already have a whole bunch of other going second cards, and in a best of 1, I think Raigeki is a lot more powerful when you don't know what's coming, right? So there's that. We also have Divine Wind of the Mist Valley. Apparently at 2 it was fine, so yeah, you can put it to 3, no problem. Trickstar Light Stage, similar thing, kind of fulfill similar roles in terms of like their field spells that gain you advantage generically, but yeah, I don't expect this has been an issue. In fact, I know that it hasn't because I've never seen it. Yeah, this can come back to 3, no problem. Infernity Launcher, if they remember Infernities at all, this will come back to 3. I think they put it to 2 at the previous list, so maybe it comes back to 3 then. Conquistador, obviously Eldritch hasn't been doing much. I don't think... This one's also probably very, very unlikely, just due to how much Konami has been like afraid of the Eldritch cards in particular, instead of the Floodgates. But alas, there you go. As for the extra deck monsters, Trishula can come back to 3, no problem. I think they'll see that and recognize it. They like Sky Strikers, so they'll give them back Kagari, even though they're not going to limit engage like they should. And then Galatea, obviously Orcus isn't really doing anything, so they can have the 3rd Galatea. Other such things that are not going to happen is like Spiral Quick Fix coming back to 3. Girsu, the Orcus Mech Knight, isn't going to be unlimited or semi-limited. So stuff like that. I also don't expect the Dimension Shifter to go up or down. I think it's fine at 2, or at least Konami thinks that it's fine at 2. And similar to the OCG, this is where it's at in the OCG, and yeah, so it's going to stay there. But that's it for my predictions. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated, and if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.